All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast for this exciting episode of the summer series, the second one for the new financial year. And we're talking to a very impressive human today. He's an outlier, Ben. He has amassed a $3.4 million property portfolio in his early 30s, and he started at the young age of 22. And it's all about prioritizing the real things in life, Ben. What else do we cover?
Well, Bryce, we also explore this whole concept of overcoming the and the stigmas that sometimes are associated with early success. So it really is a story of success, and I can't wait to unpack Adam's story.
It's a great story. It's all about travel as well. Let's rip into the show.
Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance, and money management.
All right, Ben, we got a very special guest today to chat to on this edition of the summer series. We are chatting with Adam Kalesia, TBC listener, by the way, Ben. Welcome to the Property Couch, Adam.
Thank you, guys. Stoked to be here.
How did I go with the surname, by the way?
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Calleja, Kalesia is how I went. But hey, listen, we are super excited to unpack your story today. You've got there's lots of layers in your story, but I want to start with you for this question. Property investing can sometimes be a solo journey, right? So do you ever find it challenging to connect with others who understand what you're working towards?
Yeah, I guess I've been pretty lucky with my parents. Like they started their investment property journey when I was 13. So taking me back to like looking back after doing the looking at my questions for the podcast made me think back to that time when I was 13 after school. It was a local property, so dad's a tradie, mum's a receptionist. That we'd go down there and work on the property and try to get it. It was a new experience for everyone, I guess, but it was cool to like go there and help them get it up to scratch. Dad bought a shack, knocked it down, and put a duplex on it. So weekends and after school was, going there working on that, and I think that probably laid a good platform for me now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always good when you've got a parent who sort of models the way, but it kind of leads us to our way to get to know you. When you were younger, it seems like you got to see what mum and dad were doing with that property investing journey, but did they speak openly to you about money?
Not when I was living under their roof and at home. I think more so since I've grown up, bought my own properties, like sort of talking back and forth with them about it. I think that's when the real relationship around money and investing started. But probably while I was at home and they were doing it, it was more just seeing what they were doing and picking up what I could. A few moments of driving in Dad's van to the investment property with him talking about passive income is what you want, and I'd never heard of what that was. And then that's really stuck with me now. I was like, okay, like that's sort of a holy grail, passive income. And then, that was really big with me. And then I also remember from my mum's side, doing my resume one day. I was probably 14, 15. And she was like, for your goal, write financial independence as what your goal is. And I had same things, never heard what that was. And that stuck with me from that day. But at the time, she probably didn't think any of it and probably doesn't even remember doing it. But yeah, I guess from both mum and dad, those are two huge things that I've learnt from them and owe a lot to them, I guess, being super lucky with
Adam,
that.
let's just paint a picture of the household. So we grew up New South Wales. Were we sort of Sydney-based or regional? Where were we?
Down in Shell Harbour. We're an hour and a half south of Sydney.
Yep.
Just a middle class working family. Dad was a tradie, mum was a receptionist, like I said.
Yep.
One sister, 3 years older than me.
Yep.
So just your sort of average family, I guess. And then
And
just
yeah, so let's just sort of talk to. You didn't say that they didn't give too many clues away, but there are a few clues as you were getting a little bit older. By that middle class, it sounds like you didn't go without too many things. You have annual holidays and trips away, like were you traveling interstate or overseas, or tell us a bit about that story.
super lucky with all that, but there was definitely, looking back now, definitely a very big conscious mindset sort of on that you had to save where you had to, and then we'd go on, say, a annual trip to Bali or every couple of years or something, and back then was a lot different to what it is now. That was real eye-opening for me and my sister. I remember seeing beggars on the side of the road over there with amputated legs and whatnot, and I'm walking past it, I'm like, we're fine as our family, and you're seeing people in that situation, like, that's just ingrained in my mind and sort of brings you back to earth of how lucky you are and what we've got over here. And then I think coming then back home, it sort of has always made me realize, like, just, how lucky you are. And sort of, then you also interact with people over there or young families there, which my parents are really good at doing that sort of stuff, and just seeing how happy they are as well. And when you compare that to what you then go home to, is like, shows that money isn't everything, but I think at the same time, instills it.
It's a means to an end, right? So let's go to, obviously, it sounds like you got a CV getting ready for your first job, whether that your part-time job as someone in their teenage years. What was the first major sort of item that you saved up for, that you sort of learnt this whole concept of delayed gratification? Was it the car, or was it something, like a bit of technology? Was it a Walkman, a bike, or anything like that?
Walkman, Ben, he's not that old.
A bit hard with the first, I'd say, but I think thinking back now, buying a car brand new was probably the worst decision I think I've ever made.
What was it?
Good.
What was it?
Just a Holden Cruise, like a hatchback. But looking back now, it's like you could afford it, so you did it. But it was just a bit of a waste of money.
At least you got the new car idea out of your system really early. Because I am looking at your platform here, and I can see the car. I'm looking on more here, and I'm seeing your car's not worth a lot, which is good. So it means you don't value it very much because it's a depreciating asset.
I think I'm not sure if one of you guys came up with it, or you've quoted before. What is it? Something about drive the cheapest car your ego can afford. Is that it? Yeah. I've told that to one of the guys at work. He liked that one.
Yeah. Well, I can tell. So it's still a Holden by the sounds of things. I'm just sort of looking at it here, but it's I think you got it about 2012 Holden, $5,000. Loving it. Yeah. Absolutely loving it. What do you know? As long as it goes forwards and backwards and gets you there safely.
But wait till you hear the story, folks, because there's a reason behind why he's got a car like that. But so I guess Adam, did you reflect on with growing up that's actually quite a nice little tuition that you were receiving with your parents over the dinner table. If they weren't talking to you, they were actually showing you. They were on the weekends. At the time, it probably felt like a drag, but have you reflected on the fact that was actually a little gift for you, because it actually planted seeds on your mindset? And as we flesh out your story through this conversation we have with you, you'll see that you've built up a nice portfolio here. Do you see that as a real strength of being exposed to that early?
Yeah, 100% now. And I think from coming on here and doing this has made me look back and realize that how much of a part that has all played. I'd say, like, I can definitely tell now that they were pretty green at it. But at the same time, they were meeting up with other like-minded people that they'd met from whatever networks they'd created there. And they were going around and playing like the cash flow board game and stuff like that. And I was like sort of thinking I was a bit too cool for that. It was a bit silly, I guess. But now looking back, and they're doing it all for us and to try and get the family in a better position. And then same thing after school, when you just want to go home and play the PlayStation or whatever, you're going down the road and working on the family investment property. But yeah, I value that hugely now. They ended up doing two sets of properties close to home,
Yeah,
and
right.
so that was huge. Now, like,
Now, who did you think your parents got their advice from? Were they reading books on property? Were they, did they go to seminars? Like, how did they discover? Because as you said, your dad was a builder,
Sounds
so
like you read
obviously,
Rich Dad Poor Dad by the sounds of it.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Where,
yeah,
where did he get all this motivation and
yeah.
this critical thinking from?
It was definitely Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm pretty sure someone at Mum's work was into property investing, and that sort of sparked their idea. Dad's definitely a goer. Mum's a bit more of a cautious, wants to sort of do her own research a bit more to make sure it works. But Dad's like knows that he can sort of make apple into apple pie with like sort of just what he's capable, his skill set, like being
These
hands
beautiful
on.
hands allow that to
Um,
sort of happen. And who
yeah,
manages the finances at home for your parents?
definitely mum.
Okay, so
Mum's
she was the
mum's the
bookkeeper.
more
She looked after the
yeah
finances.
yeah.
Now
But
let's
Dad's the
let's
one
talk
going,
about.
let's go, let's get another one, sort of thing. And Mum's like, but you don't
You
know
know,
if it's making us any money yet, sort of thing. So I think I've got a bit of both from each of them.
I think well that is important, right? There is a lesson in there right now for our community about, your dad had obviously the hands, the talent to create, these, turn apple into apple pies. We talk about obviously build these duplexes that are going to create financial freedom for yourself, your family. But on the other side, you need someone who understands the cash flows and the money side of it, because at the end of the day, it's got to be plausible. And if you go in too deep, it can really be, quite tragic in terms of, the unintended consequences around what might happen. So I think there's a good lesson there. I want to ask you about the first time you had to deal with your own money. Did you develop a money system or any sort of way in which you looked after your money?
Yeah, so I I remember, so what how it all sort of played out was I was always a saver, staying at home with mum and dad. I was saving well, working, like, they're rent free, and they were sort of fine with that as long as they knew that I was saving and good with my money and working towards something. So credit to them with that as well. Like, that's definitely played a big part. But I remember after buying my first investment property that I sort of knew I was saving, so I always had this buffer there. It was fine. My expenses were low if I wanted to. But I remember getting the real estate agent report end of financial year or even every week, and seeing the portion that your income, then the portion they'd take out, and then come end of financial year they'd take out all their things. And I was just, no, that's not the entire picture of the property. There's the insurance, there's whatever else I've had to pay, the interest rates. And I was like, this isn't a true reflection of how the property's going. So that bugged me for years, and I never really did anything about it. But then it sort of got to a point where I was over it. I bought then my second one, I think, and I was like, no, I need to work this out. And I ended up like working on a spreadsheet for weeks or months. I'm not sure how long it ended up took. I'd never done anything like that before. And then I pretty much live by them now. I've made one for every property and my own cash flow. Like back to 2018, I know exactly how much I've made every month and how much that totals up to now. I think that's a really cool thing in terms of entering that data in yourself manually and knowing how all your properties perform and how you perform sort of personally. As I treat myself as like a business, I guess.
Well,
I
what is a
think
business?
that's
And I think there's a really good message in there, Adam, in the sense that I'm sort of recalling my journey in my early 20s when I was buying property number two and then property number three, and I was sort of thinking, how many of these do I need? And to your point, it's like the typical spreadsheets and that type of stuff, or the software that was available there, which is a terrific piece of software from Summersoft, from Anne and
Jan and
Ian
Ian.
Summers. Yeah, and that was really helpful. But that's sort of, again, that's the projection, right? That's the business case. But what actually truly happens, in terms of the maintenance, money going here, property, like you want to be able to track all of that as part of that particular story. And I've sort of used this sort of commentary now about conscientious. You've got to be conscientious if you're going to run these businesses, and there is some bookkeeping to do to sort of know basically what money is coming in and what money's going out. And that again is what inspired us to build out not just the money smarts, but build out the more platform for exactly that reason, in terms of being able to track all of the bookkeeping work that you need to do when you run investment properties as part of that story.
So Adam, what was the call? What was the bigger picture? You're starting to buy these properties. You're starting to see what you'd seen from your parents. What was the driving force for you? What was causing you to want to get into the investment game in the first place?
I always knew that I wouldn't get. I'm very big on experiences and traveling. Like I work and do all this pretty much to travel. Like I'm a single guy. Like, and I enjoy just getting out there and meeting people and traveling the world and seeing what's out there, sort of thing. And I just know you're forever going to be working if you're just working and saving to then fund your next holiday and get back to square one and having no money again. And I think, just from what parents have instilled in me from a young age, I guess, is that property is the way that if you can do that, if you do it right and play your cards right.
Well, to give context to our listeners, you're 32. So was there, because experience and travel sound great, but a lot of people your age do that without building the assets, right? So what were the sacrifices, and what were some of your mates sort of saying, or were you not having the conversations with them?
Definitely the sacrifices were just the amount of work I was happy to put in to have that delayed gratification of then going and traveling 3, 4, 6 months at a time a year is sort of what I've tried to do. Like I'll try going like big Southeast Asia holidays or Europe or South America. And just, I know that it's up to me to do that. And the way to get there is save, work and make money. And it'd pretty much be a two-pronged attack, I guess. I'd work as much as I could, travel a bit. Yeah. And then I was able to save for travel, but then also I wasn't going and spending, like I'd always stay in hostels because that's where you're having the most fun meeting people anyway, which is the cheapest as well. So it was like a double whammy. And then at the same time, like I'm traveling in cheap countries and it's all sort of just the experiences you're having there, not paying for fancy things, or like I don't care for any of that sort of thing. Like I'm happy to do an overnight bus ride if it saves a night's accommodation and you're getting to the next place overnight. Like you've saved, same thing twice again, sort of thing. That was sort of.
Adam, you're a real outlier. You're a real outlier because we had Harlan Giddings on our podcast. He works with part of our team, and not too dissimilar age profile for you. But what you're describing as, it's quite simple, right? You work hard and you save and you put it towards what you want to do, and then you're prepared to go and experience the world on a bootstrapping nature, so that you can actually still get both. That is actually an outlier, mate, and it's actually really rare. So you're just saying, that's what you do, but it's kind of why on the podcast we always talk about money is simple, behavior is hard. What you just described is actually simple. It's the actual doing, which is the hard bit, right? And you being able to say, yep, I will do an overnight trip because that will save a night's accommodation. I do get to the next place, and then I'm confident in myself that I probably only want to go to a hostel anyway because that's where the people are that I want to meet. These are little decisions that you're making along the way, which are banking into your experience list, but also allowing you to build a significant future. Because Ben and I are about to pivot into your portfolio build shortly, but you are a model of the way to do it. But you're definitely doing the road less traveled. Do you feel that?
Yeah, there's like even my closest mates here. Like I remember going on a trip to the States with them, and I was just was like, we've got to stay in hostels. They're like, no, why would you stay in a hostel for? It's like, we're like four single 21, 22-year-old guys. Are like, we don't want to stay in a hotel. Like, you
Yeah.
just want to talk to the concierge. Like, let's stay in a hostel where you're around other like young travelers. And heaps of my friends now that they don't stay in hostels and don't sort of get that side of me. But I'm like, that's where the fun's at.
Yeah, we won't go into the fun, but let's move on to your portfolio build, Adam.
Yeah.
You've built a really nice portfolio, so let's build up this story. Tell us about the first one. What, how was it for you to go, well, this is what I'm going to do, and then step into the arena? Was it easy or difficult, or just somewhere in between?
So I was 22 and I was still living at home at that point. And my parents are me in my ear about you got to buy your first one. You got to buy your first one. Like you got some money saved up there, and locally there was the Shellcove Marina going in and train station nearby. None of that had kicked off yet, but it was just sort of talks of it being in the works. And that was so I guess it was sort of a bit of a low risk play because you knew that this infrastructure and development was going to go in around there. And that it was the first homeowners grant at the same time, which was 25 grand cash and no stamp duty. You just had to live in it for 6 months of the first 12 months. So off the back of their sort of push, I guess, and guidance, I jumped into that one and purchased that. Still in the portfolio and gone very good, but I guess I did buy brand new, which I probably wouldn't do again. But in saying that, it's performed well. It's over doubled in value. So yeah.
Because
no
what
real
did we pay for that
complaints
one, Adam? How much was that one?
435.
$435. Now, what I want to ask, if it's okay with you, did you get any financial support from mum and dad? Like, did you tap the bank of mum and dad, or
No,
did you use
no,
your
it was
own
all
savings and your own
it was
income?
all- yeah, it was all my own.
100% yours.
Yeah.
That is a great result. Now, because when we were talking about Harley before, his first one, he obviously got help from his mum and dad, and so you get a lot of these people who sort of are really, sort of, there's a stigma built around it. I call it the yeah, but. Oh yeah, but you had this help. Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
all of these sort of reasons why it can't happen for me, which is really their excuses as to why they can't do it for themselves. In other words, they're not willing to do their hard. They're not willing to make the sacrifice. So tell me about, in the lead up to that, for the savings that you make, what sort of were you working 6 days a week? Were you working extra hours? Were you doing
Yeah.
overtime to sort of build up that first deposit?
Yeah, it was a lot of afternoons, after school work and on weekends, which I was happy to do that because my whole life's pretty much based on a goal in mind. Once you get to one, you get into another, whether that be an investment property or a 4 month trip to South America or whatever. I'm happy to sacrifice now to get to where I want to be.
So let's fill the community into Adam. What do you do for work?
I'm a joiner, so early on it was a lot of residential kitchens, which I'm back doing that again. But for the most part, I've been doing like office fit outs in the city, from installing to doing the set out on the computer and project managing the project. But yeah, sort of now back just installing kitchens locally, which has been a breath of fresh air again.
So for those people who don't know what a joiner is, it's basically
cabinet
chipping.
maker.
Yeah, cabinet maker in terms of, works with all of the design concepts around sort of building, like pretty much what your dad was. Is that sort of, did you follow in your dad's footsteps?
Yeah, he was a bit more of a handyman, sort of actual construction of houses, whereas I'm sort of more your cabinets, your kitchens and vanities and wardrobes, reception counters in the offices or lockers, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, so doing
Very,
all that.
very handy skill when you're building a property portfolio too, Ben.
Yeah, very, very handy. But we just heard that Adam bought brand new. So really, it was sort of walk in, and then you did have this period of time off, didn't you? Like ultimately, you started early, which is one of the great tips. When was the best time to start was yesterday. When is the next best time to start is today. And so you started fairly young, but you talked about, that after that, things got a little bit stale. So take us through what you mean by stale.
Yeah, it was sort of, I guess, just letting that cook, letting it do its thing.
Yep.
It Interest rates were low at that time, and it was positive from the start. So it's sort of, just letting that do its thing. You got your tenant in there, you got the growth as well. With then the marinas started coming through, and the train stations then got built, so it's sort of looking pretty good. And it was a thing where I guess I was somewhat comfortable. Like, you had a little bit of income coming from that. I had my job. My expenses weren't too high, and I don't spend too much on just splurging or whatever. So I was somewhat comfortable and didn't need more than that at the time. And then wasn't until another 5 years passed, and I got into my mid-20s and started seeing how much it was growing and being like, okay, maybe I can go again. But at that point, I wasn't. I was like, I'm not buying here again. Like, the growth here's already passed, and then it was not feeling confident in, okay, where would I buy if I was to go again? How am I going to have enough confidence to pull the trigger and say, yep, I'm happy to pay that price for this exact house when there's a whole country out there. And that's when I started worrying and being like, okay, what do I do here? And then I started researching all on my own and reading books and YouTube and podcasts. And
What do you
that
reckon
all
triggered that little extra push? Because I'm assuming during that time is the property was cooking, in your words, which means obviously the equity was growing and the value was improving. What can you put it sort of a moment in time you thought, actually, I really love this travel idea, and so to do that, I need to build this that passive income that my parents told me about years ago. Dad, like, was there some sort of little moment or trigger where you thought, okay, I need to go a little bit faster, in terms of being able to get the next one?
I think it was seeing how much it had grown, and that there was opportunity there, that if I didn't do something about it, is I'm leaving. I'm not making the most of what is potentially
Leaving the money on the
available.
table. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so Adam, you've got your podcasts and books and YouTube and all that. So what did that uncover? What became your second step?
So it was, I think a huge thing for me, like, I guess it was somewhat easy in that first step because I had some real good guidance and got lucky with what was happening nearby. But I really needed to understand what that next step was going to be and be comfortable doing that.
Hmm.
Which was then, okay, I guess just engrossing myself in as much research and learning as I could, which, as much as I hated the commute to work, I think that has helped me in a way in listening to podcasts to and from work. You guys were probably at the forefront of that, and just learning and getting that understanding really in place of, like, okay, I'm happy to put some more money,
Yeah,
on the
do
table
something
and
about it.
part with it, to know that it's going to be a good decision, rather than just be content and happy with, oh yep, I've got this one and it's going good and that's it.
Yeah. Adam, what about the fact that Ben and I are 20 years older than you, so you're tuning into the Property Couch. Some of your generation doesn't want to tune into us because it's all right for them, they were lucky, all that sort of stuff. Why were you able to sort of tap into a message from two guys that were 2 decades older than you, that still resonated for you?
Um, I think it's probably I've I've got a real keen interest in learning now that I'm older, and just not thinking like you know it all sort of thing. And there's obviously people that have more life experience and seen a lot more than I have. So why not? If there's that content's out there, why not take advantage of it and try to learn something and make decisions for yourself, not just sort of, yeah, okay, there might be some stuff out there that you don't agree with, but that's fine. You've listened to it and you know that's not for you or that doesn't suit your risk appetite or something. And yeah,
Adam, that's really clever, right? Because what you're doing is we talk about, what's the advantage of residential property? It's usually leverage. So it's being able to control a bigger asset with less of your money, but doing it sensibly around that. But the other piece of leverage, which shows your maturity in terms of your critical thinking, is that there's other people have been here, done that, and they've already sort of trod that path and helped thousands of other people to do that. So not only can I leverage in terms of borrowing money, I can also leverage in terms of their knowledge, and I can reduce the risks that are taken around their observations in doing it themselves, but also again in the literally thousands and thousands of experiences they've had in terms of looking after other people. So I think that's really smart. And like, why wouldn't you listen to those people? It's like when you sit down and talk to your grandparents or your parents, when you're in when you get a little bit older and you sit down and have long conversations, and they've got all these lived experiences and all of these wonderful things and wisdom that they can share. So it was a really clever move for you to basically say, look, all of a sudden now I've moved from interested to enthusiastic amateur. And so for me to then validate what I'm thinking, I'll go and talk to someone who's got that experience. And then I'll curate that thinking and I'll put it into my own thinking, and then I'll take action on it. So I think, again, well done in terms of having that level of maturity to know that, okay, I'm really interested in this, and I've got an opportunity. There's equity there. I've got income there. And by the way, you did give me permission to talk about the level of income you're on, because we'll talk about the full portfolio shortly. But at the moment, your income in more is sort of showing around, just between that $95,000 to $100,000 mark of income. You're self-employed, so you contract yourself out. I suspect as a sole trader in terms of that work you're doing. So it's not a huge income, right? And you're living in the most expensive sort of city and state of New South Wales, and you've still been able to be able to do that. So, I mean, is that something you're just realizing now that it was a smart decision to do in terms of leveraging this knowledge, or was it just felt natural to do it?
yeah, it was just I just knew that for me to make another step, I wasn't okay with just sort of going out there and doing it without having the understanding or just putting that trust in someone else or taking someone's advice. I needed to really form that opinion for myself based off going out and finding all that research.
Yeah.
Okay, mate. So let's pivot to the property number 2. Tell us what that looked like.
Yeah.
Where did you buy? How did you go about getting over the line? And it's if my timeline is right here, you bought the first one around 2014. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Yep. So fast forward to when did you buy the second one?
Yep. So how old was I?
Take your time.
28. I was 28, and yeah, it was ready. I was ready to take that next step, and I can clearly remember a trip home with a workmate, and I was talking how I was listening to you guys, and I was wanting to engage with a buyer's agent. I was sort of there wasn't too much around at the time in finding that stuff online. It was a bit hard. Even the word buyer's agent was like, what is that? And trying to understand that. And anyway, I remembered sort of finding out how much it was going to cost to engage with a buyer's agent, and it was like becoming okay with parting with that money was like the hard part. I was like talking to my mate from work about it, and it was like, yeah, but it costs this much to do. Like, it's still a risk. Like, are they even good? Like, how's it going to go? Sort of thing. But I just knew if I didn't take that step, years and years would have gone by with me not being confident in doing the right research for the right areas and paying the right price for that property. So I was like, no, to get something good, you need to pay for it. You need to be okay with parting that money. You've got it there, just do it, and fingers crossed it all works out, sort of thing. Which I I did, and highly recommend, and yeah,
You just
ended,
highlighted
ended up being great.
one of the four ways you pay is, and probably the most expensive way is procrastination, right? So what you did is you made a choice between procrastination and paying a fee, which is really, really good. So, okay, so you got a buyer's agent involved, and
Yep.
tell us what did you buy?
Yeah, so I bought a house in Peachtree, which is I think about 45 minutes north of Brisbane.
Yep.
An existing house. The buyer's agent got it off market. And yeah, it was an existing house. I remember there was an issue that there was a beam through the living room or something was sagging, and I remember being on the phone to one of the buyer's agent, and he's saying, "Oh yeah, we can get this fixed." And I was like, "Oh, but is it like a bad thing? Is like structurally, like should we be walking?" He's like, "Mate, it's not something worth walking away from a deal for. Like it'll be fine." And I was there stressing, never gone through anything like that before. Anyway, we got it. Paid $490 for it, and yeah, funny story with that. The tenant who moved into it and has been the only tenant I've had is they were the ones who sold it to the person I bought off. So they left. They when they sold, they went and lived away, and then they've since come back to take care of their older mother. And yeah, the husband was like, "Oh, let's go past our old house and see how it's looking." And then the partner was like, "Why would we? Why? What for?
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about it." And anyway, luckily they did. They saw the for lease sign out the front, and they were like, "We've got to move back in. Like, this is a sign, sort of thing." So
Wow.
I've got some tenants in there that treat it like their own home, and they love it, and they wanna die in the house. So
Yeah.
I've said to them, "So you can stay there as long as you want. If you like, he's oiled the whole. Got a massive back deck on it, and he's oiled the whole thing, taking it out of his own money, which isn't cheap to oil the whole timber deck. And the wife's she's always in the garden out the front and pumped a lot of money into the garden out the front, so they treat it like their own. And yeah, I
Wow.
couldn't be happy with that one.
Yeah, that is unusual, but
That is
I love
unusual and definitely a cool story. So, roughly when did you buy that? What year?
4 years ago. If you were 28, does that sound about right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
2018.
yeah,
2009.
yeah.
And what do you think it's worth now, Adam?
Now, yeah.
So 850 it's worth now.
Yeah. Wow.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good
Yeah.
in 4 years. And how's that sagging beam going for you?
Not an issue at all.
Did the building inspector pick it up as well? Was he sort of like pretty kosher with it? Or?
Yeah. It was it was very early days in that. I don't even think it got to that point, but it ended up being like it got fixed before it
Right.
settled. But
Okay.
I was sort of just stressing about it a bit and being like, "Oh, is it a bad choice to buy this one or whatever?"
So
But
you've
no.
made about $360,000, and you would have paid about $15,000 for a buyer's agent. So that net's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, 100%.
That net's pretty good. All right. So
Oh yeah, let's go to number 3. And what do we do? Do we rinse and repeat?
tell us about number 3.
Yeah, so a few years went by again, and I had then seen growth in, I guess, both of them, and wanted to go again, and engaged with the buyer's agent again, and this time I was able to buy in Stafford Heights for 643, which is Stafford Heights is about I think 15 minutes or so from Brisbane CBD.
Yeah, good spot.
Yeah, I'm really stoked with that one. Like, I think more so now, like knowing how much, how close you can buy to the city is really beneficial. And yeah, it's a older home, but So when I did buy that was sort of around the time COVID was happening. That was off market as well, and it was an old lady that I was buying off, and she'd, I guess, had her whole life in there, obviously, and she wanted a 6-month settlement for the time it was taken for her and her children to help her get all her stuff out of there. But she agreed that I could go up and work on it if in that 6-month settlement. So I was stoked. I was like, I've got 6 months to work on this house without even paying any interest on it. Like,
Yeah, wow.
but
what
but
was the work
straight
you did?
after, pardon?
What was the work you did?
Well, straight after that happened, Queensland shut its borders. So 6 months it sat up there without me
Oh.
able to get up there.
Oh.
Which, looking back now, I wish I just sort of, I don't
Snuck
know,
up
I guess, snuck up there, showed some documentation that I've just bought this, but I don't know, been too good of a citizen or something. I don't know. I
Everything's
didn't do
clear in
that.
hindsight. So,
Yeah.
so you purchased this in early 2020, did you?
Yeah, and so with that, I guess, I still haven't done that work to it. So in the back of my mind, I know that it's getting rented out for, say, less than I could be getting in that area, because it's got like your old sort of wallpaper linings on the walls and
Yeah.
old carpet that's a different random pattern and colors in every room and looks very outdated. But I think as long as the tenants are in there, let them stay there.
Yeah.
There's no point getting rid of them. But
Safe and quiet enjoyment, as long as
Yeah.
they're having that, and you're not, because every dollar you put in there, you want to try and get a return on that, right? Like
Yeah.
if it's yielding okay for what you've got, but look at that land appreciation that's going on there, right? A lot of people think that the property needs to be really acceptable for them to live in it, but it doesn't. It needs to be relative, again, safe and quiet enjoyment for the price point, because there's a lot of people who would love to live in better areas, but they don't necessarily, they can live in a reliable and durable property, or an ugly duckling, as we might call them, but it suits both purposes. You're still getting a good level of rent, which is usually a higher yield, and the land appreciation. And when you do one day do the renovations, all of a sudden you're going to lift that valuation up, get that instant equity, and ultimately that's going to be able to be used again.
Yeah. So I think
Adam,
in
that'd
the
be
back
900 plus now value, wouldn't it?
Yeah, 950 is sort of between 900 and a million is what I'm seeing online for that one.
Yeah.
So that one's been unreal. But yeah, just in the back of my mind, I think it's sort of easy for people to just look at those sort of things and be, oh yeah, how lucky or how good is that? But at the same, it's now none of them are making me money from a cash flow point of view now with what's happening with interest rates. But I just know that I've got to put money aside there on that one, that whenever that day does come that the tenant decides to leave, that I'm telling work, I'm taking a bit of time off, I'm going up there and I'm fixing this place up, take that hit to sort of add some value to it, and then then you will be able to charge
100%.
a very good value for what the area has to offer, I guess. So
so that's gone up about $300,000, Adam, and you used a buyer's agent for that. So that's about net 285 in front. I'm thinking, which is not a bad decision again to avoid procrastination.
Yeah,
clearly I'm a buyer's agent, right? So let's declare my bias here, but just highlighting the obvious. So you go from property 3, and then property 4 was a little pivot for you.
Yeah, so I guess with seeing how good those 3 were going, I was like, there's still so much money here that's not working for me. Which by that point I was like, just wanting to maximize, I guess, what I was capable of, or what the properties were capable of. But yeah, I was told I'm sort of maxed out and tapped out with how lending had been restricted so much, but I'm like, but look at the value. My loan to value ratio is like 50% or so. Like, you're able to have a first home buyer who's at 90% or something, borrowing 90. Like I'm at 50 and there's a family in every one of these houses helping me pay for it. Like I couldn't wrap my head around it. But yeah, obviously there's more to it than that with safe lending and whatnot. But yeah, I was just wanting to take that next step to maximize what my portfolio is then capable of. And we've been told no there. I just knew that I had to keep looking and try find a different answer. And I ended up settling on commercial property.
Yep.
Because of you're still able to leverage, which I'm a big advocate for if you do it right, and but your cash flow is higher. So I did the same there. Ended up engaging with a buyer's agent in commercial property space, and got my first commercial property. So 4 properties all up now, and
Well done. So tell us a bit about that commercial experience. What LVR were you able to get? Was it 65%?
yeah, it was
It's typically about a
6.
35% deposit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the lender that I used on that was really good in terms of he was able to take a fair bit out of Dillon Road, which was my first property.
Yep.
But it's funny, like I guess you sort of learn all this on the fly. But my interest rate on that was then, because I was able to borrow more from that than I could with any other bank, was a lot higher. So it was okay. Being comfortable, you tell that to anyone on the street or whatever that's not as in depth with it. Well, oh, you're paying 8%, like that's crazy. But I was like, yeah, but it's allowed me to. It's the cost of doing business. It's allowed me to get this next asset. Sure, it's not great from a cash flow point of view for that property, but for the whole portfolio, I was able to get another property that's 655,000. Like, sort of that made sense to me. But of course, it's not. When you just look at it as an interest rate point of view, it's not great.
Yeah. No, it's an overall cost of holding the loans, what the cash flow is. That's one of the benefits of going commercial, is it that you know the tenant's paying all the outgoings and the costs, so you get more cash flow in. But there's cons around not knowing which one to get, and you're dealing with the different market, and the deposit that you have to kick in is higher. So it's just a balancing act. But I think you've done it. You thought about it the right way too, Adam, because you've got the runs on the board with residential property. I think that is definitely the beginner's playground, because you get to learn all the mechanics and all the moving parts, and what it's like dealing with tenant, and what it's like dealing with stuff that pops up along the way, because you need to be able to have some form of run rate on that before you even consider going into the commercial space. So all right, so the portfolio's now got 4 in total. What's the total portfolio value now?
3.4.
3.4 million. As a millennial, Ben, who's really modelling what it takes to actually get on the property ladder and continue to move along the property ladder, which is outstanding. What's the LVR currently on the portfolio?
So the whole portfolio LVR is 59.34%.
Wow.
Beautiful. And just with that commercial property, did you buy that in your individual name, or did you set up
No.
Okay.
Family discretionary trust.
Yeah, okay. So you've set up a trust structure for the commercial property, which again, if anyone's thinking about this type of thing, the reason why potentially you can access equity in the existing portfolio, but in some respects, some lenders, so this is about investment savvy broker, they will look at the deal in isolation. So they may not necessarily look at the individual's interest in other assets or other debt exposures. So they like the asset base, but ultimately being able to release the equity out of the residential property, have that as a big deposit, i.e. to Bryce's point, the 35%. So you can lump that down, get a 60 to 70% loan to value ratio on the commercial property, but they're not going to take into consideration all the other debt exposure you have in your personal name. Now, again, that's not advice. And if you think, that's how I can make the next step, I encourage you to go and speak to your accountant in terms of understanding all that. understanding the risk appetite, and all of those other pieces are associated with that. But that's exactly how, the sort of more aggressive approaches that people can take to keep moving their portfolio forward, like Adam has done. So that's a credit to you, Adam. So, you said, no, I'm really keen and interested. I built a lot of confidence in terms of, because each post up until then has been a winner. But I can tell you that in some cases, even with those great buyers agents, you've done really well in terms of them buying great properties. But if that same great buyers agent also had bought similar properties in Melbourne at the same time, those properties haven't performed as well, or similarly, in Western Australia or whatever. But now, don't say anything wrong with Melbourne. Over the decades, Melbourne's going to shine again. But it's just, if they hadn't have performed so well, the psychology of you could have been something, I'll just take my time, right? But because the wealth effect, which is the fact that, hey, I'm doing pretty well here, things are going pretty well, and I want to keep going, it's about getting that balance right in terms of that. I recently spoke to a gentleman at the end of the sort of, the year, and he told me some really difficult stories that I had to listen to around millions and millions of dollars that he is losing because he had a buy and hold strategy and then went into developing property. And a lot of those properties have unfortunately, been in Victoria and in Melbourne. And so he's got all these developments that he's losing millions and millions of dollars on. And it's just really sad to hear those types of stories because, the simple buy and hold type strategies could have served very well. And so all of that, basically 40 years of building out a property portfolio is all now being unwound. So it's also a reminder to people in terms of how much is enough, to your point, Adam. And, in terms of the way in which I see your situation, one maybe enough, right? And then off you can go, get the debt retired, and ultimately start doing that traveling. And then when you settle down, because what we also need to disclose here is you're a rentvestor. You don't have a principal place of residence in this mix yet. And so this is going to also give you that choice about whether you divest from some of these to, buy that dream home as part of that. Do you have any thoughts around that planning in terms of what you want to do?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I don't have any desire to own my own principal place of residence. I'm quite enjoy the freedom. Yeah, quite enjoy the freedom of sort of just being able to go wherever, sort of thing. Yep. But yeah, it's for me now. It's sort of becoming interesting how to plan. I don't have any appetite to buy more or grow this portfolio, like get in more debt and grow, because you start doing that is what I've sort of found is you just need to keep proving to the bank that you have more income. So it's sort of going against what I want to do in terms of working less and traveling more, sort of thing.
Time freedom, yeah.
Yeah, it's like what am I trying to achieve here? Okay, yeah, sure, you can keep buying more if you show the bank that you're working more or whatever, but I don't think I need more. It's more going to come down to, like you say, retiring the debt or potentially selling one or two in the future or something and turn it into more of a cash flow positive, and being happy to sacrifice, okay, you got a smaller portfolio or something that's not making you as much from, say, a growth point of view, but it's funding the lifestyle that you want to achieve. Yeah. So it's about being comfortable with making that decision, I think, and walking away from letting the portfolio grow.
And just a quick one, Adam, around your super. Are you also, a lot of self-employed sort of subcontractors and sole traders don't necessarily do much around super contributions. Are you also doing something and focusing on that vehicle as well?
So I haven't every year. It's sort of it's one of those things. From a tax point of view, yeah, it's the best thing you can do to minimize your tax. Yep. But I think because I'm still pretty young. Because I'm still pretty young, it's it's a long time before you can then access that. I think when
Well,
I'm
you
a bit
supplemented
older,
it anyway with a multi-million-dollar property portfolio. So,
yeah,
where we see frustration in sole traders and so forth, if they're not putting money into super and they're living paycheck to paycheck or job to job,
yes,
that's going to be a big problem for them, right? They're going to be they're going to be living on a sub ordinary level of income in retirement. So that's subpar income. So they've got to make these decisions. So you're doing it. So there's no alarm bells ringing in my mind around the fact that you don't have a strong super portfolio, but it's something you will be thinking about later in life as you
yeah,
start to
definitely
land the
aware of it.
plane. To your point about income. Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam, as we head for home, I've got two final questions for you. The first one is, how will it feel for you? Do you remember when you told us a story that your dad spoke over you, passive income? Passive income, I didn't know what that, at the time you didn't know what that was. And then mum wrote a note about financial freedom. I think you said financial freedom.
Yeah.
How will it feel for you to, like, you are going to achieve those two things? As we said at the top, you're an outlier. You're very determined. You've got a very clear focus on doing what matters. What would that feel like when you sort of really let that sink in, that those two things, financial freedom and passive income, are now going to be yours?
It's definitely very relieving, and somewhat of like a weight off your shoulders. I think the thing is that, like, I know if I was to sell a couple of properties now, I could achieve that now. But for now, like, I enjoy my work. I enjoy going to work every day. It's my choice because I know that it's furthering what I want to do, and I'm not sort of ready to just walk away from work and try and fill my days with hobbies or whatever. But I think it's just to make, like, that being your decision sort of thing to sorry, I'm losing my losing track here.
Well,
It's just
you just got lifestyle by design
Yeah.
dialed in. You get to live your terms. It's called personal
ex-
sovereignty.
yeah,
Do
yeah.
what you want, when you want, with whom you want, whenever you want.
Yeah, it's that being not being forced to do anything. Like, I've got a couple of mates that I met on a trip. I was in Bali. I was doing like a deep week, which is like a free diving course, and I met four like absolute legends there, and they were all spearfishermen, and they're like, let's go through Indonesia and like go on this like month-long spearfishing trip. I didn't care about spearfishing at all, but I just enjoyed their company and being around them, um, and what they were all about, sort of thing. I was like, oh yeah, I'll just get my GoPro and I'll follow you around. Anyway, we end up going. We all cancelled our flights home, and like, none of us had met each other before. We all cancelled our flights home and stayed in Indonesia for a month. And just I sent a message to the company I was working for and was like, sorry, I'm staying over here. I'm going on a spearfishing trip for a month, and we just backpacked around Indonesia and just went spearfishing every day.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was unreal. Like, that to me is what I do it all for. To be honest, is those sort of experiences where I'm not. I can if I want, and it's up to me. You know what I mean?
Well done. That's
And
true lifestyle by design,
that's what
mate.
I live
So,
for.
yeah, it's brilliant. And my final question for you is, we put the call out to come on to Summer Series. Why did you come on, mate? What was it in your story that you wanted to share most with our community?
Um, I really enjoy the topic of investing, but I find it sometimes hard to talk to people who are like-minded and aren't going to judge you, where you are in your property journey, or how much you have, or how much you make, or anything like that. And like, I'd love to talk to people who are of that same sort of thinking and interest, but it's about not being judged by, or like, I don't know, even doing this now where people know how much my property's worth. I don't think that's a reflection of who I am as a person, or what I value, or just like, oh, he's got heaps of money, sort of thing. Like, And I don't judge anyone in return about that sort of thing. I just find it a really interesting topic, and bettering yourself and what you're capable of and setting yourself up for life through your own hard work and decision making and all that sort of stuff. Whereas, like, I've talked with guys at work about it who have similar interests, and I get a real joy out of that because I feel like from the research and podcast listening and books I've read that I probably have a little bit of gold that I can share with people, and in return, anyone that has like sort of new ideas or ways of thinking about things, and yeah, like even like perspective, like I've realized that like you can look at things in a different way and turn something into a positive, like say interest rates rising, like okay, it costs more for me to hold that property, but it also means that yeah, not enough to keep up with how much the interest rates are going up by, but it means that I can raise the interest, raise the rent on the property for me to hold. Then looking further down the track in say a couple of years, that rental properties now renting out at a higher amount, but I was able to do that because the interest rates went up and it was harder. You obviously can't continue to hold it at the price it was. And same for like people can't then borrow because the interest rates are higher. So you having that property is you're sort of an outlier there. Like if you can hold on and get through that sort of tough time of the rates being higher, it is eventually going to go back down, and then your property is going to be worth more when the rates do go down because then more people can. So it's a matter of like which way you look at it. You just can't get caught up on it's costing me so much to hold this. So if you can look past that, I've found a bit of gold in that.
Adam, there's always going to be people who judge, right? And there's always going to be people who have envy of what other people have. And they get annoyed, they get frustrated, they potentially get angry about that story because it's not their story. They sit on these social media places, they build up this anxiety, they build up this frustration. All they need to do is look internally and saying, what am I doing around myself? And what actions am I taking? What mindset and attitude am I bringing to the table to basically make me be one of those people rather than just expecting someone else to fix their problems for them. So you'll always have that unfortunate envy and judgment that occurs in what you're doing. And that's the stigma piece, that we talked about off air in terms of that, because the reality is you are a success story. You are an aspiring Australian who's taking control of your own situation. And by doing so, you are now bought your own time. You've been super smart. You started early. You use leverage, not just lending leverage, but also leverage in terms of other people's skills and knowledge. And you've turned that into effectively a fantastic return. And you're letting time and the value of compound do the heavy lifting for you. So as we wrap up this episode, it's just a credit to you, mate, in terms of that. And you should be proud of that. And if anyone wants to bring you down through the tall poppy syndrome that we have in this country, ignore them. They're not the people who matter. The people who matter are the experiences and the life journey that you're having with those people who appreciate you for who you are, not for your money, but who you are. And basically, you're living your best life. And that's all we can ask of anyone who basically has a go and does the work that you've done. So credit to you, mate. And I really appreciate you coming on. We both do in terms of sharing your story.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Well done, Adam. Well done, Adam. So if anyone's listening to this story and they can relate to Adam, they've got a property portfolio themselves and they feel that sort of intellectual isolation that Adam just described, why don't you reach out to Adam we might get your socials link, Adam, so that we can are you on socials?
Yeah. On we'll Instagram. Don't post too much. Probably a bit more about running than anything else these days.
We'll find a way for you to connect with some other people. As part of being generous to come onto the show and share your story with our audience, we'd love to find a way for you to connect with one or two other property investors who you can relate to, so that you can
that'd be great.
Build those relationships.
We've got the Make Money Simple Again community on Facebook too, right? There's over 4,000 people who are sitting on that community who talk about money smarts and they talk about more, but they also talk property. So, that's another way potentially in which they could connect, right? Because it is about, finding your tribe. And yeah, we're interested in helping aspiring Australians, those people who don't want the government to fix their problems. Basically, these are the people who are going to be self-made and have high aspiration, and that's our tribe, and that's what we're proud of in terms of taking these people on these financial transformation journeys, and so they and their families in a lot of cases can have financial security, and that's also what we do, the work we do in our business every day in terms of helping people on that journey. So if you do need to reach out and you want to find that connection, then we've obviously got that community inside Facebook as well.
Well said, Ben. But on behalf of everyone here on the Property Couch, Adam, thanks for sharing your story today.
Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, Adam. You're a ripper.
Oh, what a great story. What I really loved about the conversation that we had in the lead up to this for Adam was it's one of those tall poppy things in Australia where, he's successful, he's young, he's got his priorities worked out. He's getting that fine balance between building a portfolio, going traveling. He talked about that fishing trip that just lasted a month, right?
Yep.
But then also talking about a bit of isolation that comes from not being able to really chat about it and have people be able to relate to his story. So I think one of the things from that message was, it's a great story. But the second thing is just to remind folks that there are people out there like you if you find yourself being a bit of an outlier and wanting a level of success that isn't the norm around here. So what a wonderful story, Ben.
It is, and he's still doing his hard. Obviously when he works, he's working pretty intense to be able to get to that sort of stage. But he's also now starting to think about what his investments need to do for him in terms of capital growth returns, but also the yield returns that coming in off that. So, there is a story going on here. I've got some notes about start early. I mean, remember, if you haven't started early, that's still okay. But just if you said you were going to start yesterday, today's the day. Okay, make sure you're starting to take action because you can still achieve it later in life. And we've got great examples of that on the summer series as well. He's just a beneficiary of the power of compound and the power of time on his side. So if people are, judging him or have envy, well, that's a choice you can make, but it's not going to be helpful for you in terms of how it's going to develop you as a person. What you should be thinking about is, well, okay, what did he do? He took action and he made that conscious choice, and he's now juggling that sort of nice portfolio with his life and smelling the roses along the way. So I really like what Adam's been able to do, and it's a credit to him. And yes, it might be hard to sort of have that conversation with others, but it should be an inspiration for many aspiring Australians. So there will always be those naysayers, those people who play the victim. Don't worry about them. Just stick with your tribe, and that is the aspiring Australian who's going to take care of their own future and live life by design their way. So Adam is an example of that.
Delayed gratification, frugal living, and continuous learning really summed up Adam really well. But I love the fact that he's not chasing shiny, he's not chasing bling. He knows what's important to him, and he's really prioritised that. And it's it's an impressive portfolio. I think the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, Ben. Dad was talking about passive income and financial freedom when he was young, when he was a teenager, and I think for
some clues.
What you and I are trying to do through the last couple of years by making sure that every conversation that we have with people is to go, what was conversations like for you growing up, so that we can encourage our community to have real conversations with their kids, at the barbecue, over the dinner table, in the car, wherever it is. I think Adam is the manifestation of what we're trying to do here, right? His parents were early on that, making sure that they had those conversations. But now for him, it's just normal. It's just normal. It's isolating, and he mentioned that, but it's normal for his portfolio to be.
But it's a what's possible story here too, Bryce, isn't it? In terms of, well, can I buy a house? How much do I have the borrowing capacity to actually take action? Have I got enough savings? So as we're second week into 2025, we've got to start thinking about those types of things in terms of, don't just, sure, you can go onto a, website and look at a borrowing power calculator. No, just ring an investment savvy broker Just the question, what can I borrow? What's my situation? How much equity have I got in my family home? Is it possible for me to start this journey of accumulating wealth where I can start to live my lifestyle by design? Simple questions, but powerful ones to be able to take action on. So, yeah, it's a what's possible story here. And Adams said, okay, well, I know what's possible and I've acted on what's possible. And now I'm enjoying the fruits of my labor. And I know that wealth tree is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over the next couple of decades. It's a terrific story.
So, folks, if you can relate to Adam's story, or you can relate to any of the summer series that we've had to date, we'd love for you to share these episodes with your friends and your colleagues and your family, so that more and more people can hear stories like this, so that they can actually be part of the lonely crew in parts, Ben. But the more and more of us that there are, the more and more of us that will stick together, so that we actually do have these amazing choices. So well done, Adam. Again, if you've got value out of that, please like, share, subscribe, all those sorts of things. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're listening to us on any other platform, if you just hit that share button and send it to someone that you think would really benefit from hearing a story like that, we'd certainly appreciate that. But well done, Adam. Well done for sharing an incredible story with us here on the podcast with our community mates. And you are just a lock for living a wonderful life by design. And that gives Ben and I enormous joy to be able to observe that and to play a small part in your journey as well. So, mate, this is fun. Summer series is fun. Hearing
Fun,
people.
Bryce. I mean, I'm feeling the love. Everything's moving around. It's all good.
For those listening at home, they cannot see that you're in 50.
You want me summer shirts?
40 odd episodes a year. You've always got your business shirt on. I've always got the t-shirt on, mate. But you got your barbecue shirt on, which is amazing. Which is
got my fancy dress shirt on.
That's not easy to pull off in Victoria because the weather's likely to change just after lunch. But mate, strap in, folks. We've got more great stories to come, Ben. But until next week,
knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it.
See you next week, folks.